191 Lake Road for a vehicle that is on fire close to the house and has started the house on fire too.
Early morning hours of December 24, 2012, my officers were dispatched to a car fire on Lake Road in the town of Webster. We're a small agency. We have 34 sworn officers, and we routinely respond to police and fire and ambulance calls. The area car responded to the car fire on Lake Road. He was first to respond in front of the firemen. The fire trucks, after he saw the initial car fire, he pulled a patrol car up past the car fire so the fire trucks could gain access. As he saw the initial fire trucks pull up, he started hearing popping noises. He thought perhaps the car fire, had things exploding on it, like the tires or the struts on the trunk lid or the hood lid. Then he saw firemen start to go down, and he still thought, as they exited the fire truck, that perhaps they were being struck by shrapnel from the car exploding. At that time, he saw a muzzle flash from just north of the location. It was an old railroad bed, which the railroad tracks had been removed, and we later found out that a gunman had secreted himself in the rocks and boulders on the railroad bed and had somewhat of a sniper's nest prepared and was firing at the responding firemen.
At 951, you want me to start the ambulance because firefighters are down? Okay.
He's going to be up on the lake here. I'm taking cover right now. I'm at 169 Lake Road. I can see him. He's a little distance away right now. He's going to be across from the street of the fire. Guys, shots fired on my end. He went down. I don't know if I hit him or not. He's by a tree.
The interesting part is my police officer had been standing there moments before, and the gunman did not shoot at the police officer. After the police officer saw the muzzle flash, he quickly ran to his patrol car and obtained the assault patrol rifle from our car and engaged with the shooter, just shooting at muzzle blast. Very, very dark night, dark night, cold of winter, probably 5:30 in the morning. All he saw was the muzzle blast. Immediately, the gunman started firing at the police officer as well, who then sought cover. Initially, he started firing right from the middle of the street at the muzzle blast. So he actually heard rounds whizzing by him as he was firing at the gunman. Our police officer immediately took cover in some buildings. The gunman continued to fire at responding equipment.
125 to dispatcher.
125.
We are being shot at. Multiple firemen down. Multiple firemen shot. I am shot. I think we have an assault rifle. We have multiple firemen down. Working fire. Fire shot with a firearm.
Understood. 1C32 to copy. Multiple firemen down. Multiple firemen shot with a working fire.
Alright, be advised I'm struck in the lower leg, knee area, and the lower left back.
10-4, brother, hang tight.
He also had started a house on fire in front of where the car was going. At this time, the house started to burn really well because he had poured accelerants throughout the inside of it. So it quickly turned into a really dramatic scene. We had two officers, one east side of the gunman, one west side of the gunman. So we had an active shooter. which is unusual in that the active shooter was outside. We really didn't have a good idea because he did see the gunman start to run along the old railroad bed east of his location. So he lost sight of it. We didn't know where the gunman was. So we had 2 firemen shot and killed. We had 2 firemen critically injured. 1 fireman extricated himself from the scene. We had all kinds of other firefighters responding to the scene, and actually an off-duty Town of Greece police officer happened in and realized that shots were being fired, and he actually had his private vehicle fired upon, took 2 rounds in his private vehicle, backed up and shut off the road to prevent additional firemen from responding to that location. So it was a very chaotic scene. We had an active gunman. We didn't know where he was. We had numerous individuals either dead or critically injured in the roadway, and we had an active fire scene that eventually spread to 7 additional homes that were completely destroyed. We couldn't send firemen into the location to put out the fires because we didn't know where our gunman was. You know, a lot of lessons learned. Number one is it took a while for the county's Bearcats armored vehicles to respond to the location. County had 2. They were both located at the Monroe County Airport. They're not really fast vehicles. It took quite a while for the Bearcats to respond to the scene so that we could have armored vehicle go in with the SWAT team to try to recover injured or deceased. So we had all kinds of resources at our disposal, but getting them to the location, and again, it was 1 police officer, probably within 10 minutes he was on scene within 2 to 3 minutes, but he changed the channels of the active shooter, and for whatever reason, probably stopped further people from being killed. Interestingly enough, the gunman was a convicted murderer, had bludgeoned his grandmother to death years before, had maxed out on his sentence, and was well known in the neighborhood as Uncle Billy. He was, subscribed to Nazism and just a really unique, kind of scary individual, but people thought that he was harmless. He always bragged about the fact that he had committed, you'd probably be wondering about the murderer that lived in the neighborhood. For any new neighbors that moved in, he went up and introduced himself, let them know that he's the one that killed his grandmother. He had armed himself. He had several hundred rounds of ammunition for the AR-15. He had a shotgun with probably 100 rounds of ammunition. He had a .38 caliber handgun with at least 100 rounds of ammunition. So he had really prepared himself for a lengthy fight. He left a note that we located later at the scene that said he intended to burn the neighborhood down and kill as many firemen as he could, and that was his intent. He lived in his grandmother's home that he had killed with his mother, who was elderly, and in her waning years, she had required the assistance of the ambulance on numerous times. Our ambulance was attached to the fire department, West Webster Fire Department, and in her will, she had asked in lieu of donations and flowers that any donations be made to the West Webster Fire Department. We'll never really know, but our inclination is that he had grievance against the fire department because he was upset that money was sent to them in his mother's name, whether he felt the money should come to him. The other thing that really set him off is a part of the only home he'd ever lived in other than state prison was that home that he now co-owned with his sister, and his sister wanted to sell the property and split it because she was fearful of him. She slept with a .38 caliber handgun, which we believe was the same handgun that was recovered next to him that Spengler actually committed suicide with. She slept with it under her pillow. Her remains were found in the burnout home with a .38 caliber hole in her skull, so our assumptions are that he took the gun that she had, killed her, set the house on fire, set the car on fire to summon the firemen to the scene, and then he could ambush the responding firemen. the first pumper in was one of my lieutenants, Mike Ciparini, and he was driving the pumper. And when he, we have information from one of the firemen that was critically injured that was actually riding in the doghouse with Lieutenant Ciparini. But when they came in, and I can't tell you how many, I think there was 70 to 80 bullet holes in the truck from the sniper rifle through the windshield. But as they approached, the assumption was Lieutenant Ciparini thought that they were being shot at from where the car was burning. They didn't realize the gunman was on the north side of where they were. So he let the other firemen know, we're taking fire, we're being shot at. So that he jumped over he put the truck in park, jumped over the doghouse in the front, told the other firemen to bail out, and they actually bailed out right into the line of fire of the bad guy. We believe, we don't know this to be sure, but we think that Lieutenant Ciparini ran directly, realized and saw Spengler and ran directly at him, and he was shot, took one fatal shot to the head, with a direct line, probably within 15 feet of the gunman. So we think that perhaps Ciparini saw him, decided he was going to tackle him, try to take him down because he was unarmed. The fireman actually that was critically struck, and told us about the heroic actions of Lieutenant Ciparini, crawled underneath the fire truck and in between the rear dual's tires. He was actually struck another time as he laid under the truck, but he laid there until he was recovered by the Bearcat and the responding SWAT team members. We had Tomasz Kachówka, who was actually good friends with Lieutenant Ciparini's son, was also in the fire department, responded in an EMS capacity or a fly car capacity. And as he was putting on his gear, he didn't realize or couldn't hear the gunshots and started running up to the truck to help. As he was putting his turnout gear on and running up, he was struck twice and killed instantly as well. So we had the 3 fatalities. We had Spengler's sister, the 2 firefighters, and 2 firefighters critically injured. Locally, in the greater Rochester area, it brought the community together closer than we'd ever been. Police, fire, and EMS, federal, state, and local. We had a massive response from every agency that you can imagine, and just an outpouring from the community. There had been a question very locally for our police department whether or not there was a value in continuing to support a police department that cost, $5, $6, $7 million a year, whether there was a value in that with all the consolidations. But I can tell you that it was really clear to our community after that, with a 2-minute response to a tragedy like that, that we were valuable and we continue to be valuable. And any of the naysayers that had suggested doing away with our local police department changed their minds. I had people that had lobbied to put us up for a referendum that came in and told me that they were mistaken.